Yo, what's up everybody? It's Manga Mike here, and in today's video I'm going to be doing a 1 month review of the XP Pen 22R Pro. So, let's see if I like it as much as I did when I first opened it. Let's get started. Alright, so the first thing that, everybody pretty much wonders about is like the parallax and the overall drawing experience. So I'm going to comment on that first. So the parallax, I can't really show it, but there is some slight parallax there because it's not a laminated display. But from my experience, I have not really had any difficulties with it. Like, it doesn't feel like it's messing up my workflow at all. And the only other thing too, as far as the actual pen function is concerned, is there is a slight delay within there, but it's not too bad. And it's nothing that is going to negatively impact your ability to draw consistent and good looking art. So as far as performance is going, I would say it's an 8 out of 10. That's the grade I would give it. Okay, so the next thing I actually want to talk about is the drivers. So at first I was trying to say to do the this driver right here, or I guess it would be this driver up here for this particular tablet. I actually found, for whatever reason, that this driver, for me, the calibration for the pen wasn't working correctly, at least for me in that moment. And it looks like it's actually been updated, so maybe that's changed. But this driver right here, for me, the calibration works great, and the buttons and things like that, it's really easy to kind of change the buttons in those settings. I'll pull up the driver as well really fast. So it's the one that looks like this. I have found it to be perfectly fine. I've no real problems with it. The sensitivity is good, as you can see. It's really charting it well. The express key buttons, again, they work fantastic. The dials are good to go. I've had no real problems there. So that is it for that part. Alright, so I'm going to talk about a few things with the display tablet itself. So the first thing is I'm going to actually discuss the pen. So after using this pen for about like 30 hours, I would say this is one of the most comfortable display tablet pens that I've used. So I've used the pen made by HP, which I think is the same pen as the Wacom display tablets. That one is a little thinner than this. It's more like a pencil. It has the eraser on the end. And I've also used the pen the pen for the Artosil D16. So I don't have that much experience, but what I do like about this pen is that it really fits well in the hand. I'm not claw gripping it. It's a nice size. It's not too big, not too small, and it's tapered too. That's one thing that I like about it. So there are two negatives about this pen, though, that I want to talk about. So the first one is these buttons right here. So this is like kind of a double-edged sword. So this top button is kind of programmed to go into what they call like eraser mode. Let's see if I can get it back in focus there. Yep. So the top is like, it goes into eraser mode. And what you need to know about eraser mode is once you go into eraser mode, you can't go into anything else. So even if you have like the brush on the side as one of your buttons, even pushing that, it won't go into the brush. So like, it's not broken, don't worry. It's just that you have to re-push that button again. The other thing that I don't like about this pen right now, and maybe this is something that XP Pen will do since Huion just did it, is the end of the pen itself. Let's see if I can get that. There we go. So it's got one of those hard plastic ends to it. The reason why I don't like that is because it kind of slides across the screen. So in my initial review, one of the things that I said was that it has some grit to it. The screen does. Come to find out, that's only because it needed to be broken in a little bit. So that is one thing that I will change in this particular review about this pen display, is that did not hold up. And then the other point about this pen tip is that I've already had to change it once, and I'm going to talk about this later, but I had to change it because it was starting to scratch the screen a little bit. And again, it's only been a month. I've only probably put in maybe like 30 hours on this thing. I don't know how long pen nibs usually last, but that was a little bit alarming to me. So the other thing that I wanted to quickly talk about is the express keys on the sides. So express keys are great. I'm going to tell you this right now. I highly doubt that you're going to use 20 of them, but I do use 10. So I use the ones on the left side. I use them all the time. I have them set up the way that I like them. And then the other thing is that it does have the dials on the sides, and you can program the dials for, I think, four different functions. So you can do like rotate, you can do zoom, brush size, all of those things. So that's really cool. And the way that I have it set up is on the left side I have brush size, and on the right side I have zooming. That way I can stop drawing and I zoom, and then I look at it, and then I can zoom back out if I want to. The only other thing that I will say, and this is totally up to you, I would say I highly recommend to get this. These come with the display if you just pay an additional $10. I don't know if it's worth $10 or not. You might be able to go to the store and find stickers for yourself. If you can, I would recommend doing that. But these stickers work really well. I've had them on there since basically like maybe 3 or 4 days in, because I bought it right afterwards, and they stick well. And you know, you even have like the customizable ones, so you know, you can just pull off one and kind of draw on there and say whatever you want to say and work it that way. So that's one thing that I would recommend investing in as well. So let's move on to the next point. Alright, so my next point is actually going to be about the brightness of the display. One, if you like really, really bright displays, this one does, at least in my opinion, to like the naked eye. I don't have something to like calibrate and actually measure, but to my eye, this does get pretty bright. And I will say though, it has impacted my drawing experience a little bit. There are times in which my colors are actually a little bit too bright as I'm drawing, and then when I go to post something on Instagram, it's darker when I'm posting it than I intended. So that's one thing that you might want to think about as you are drawing on this display. So that is pretty much the only real thing I have to say about the coloring of the display. I'm not like a professional at that at all. So I would say like you might be best off maybe looking at somebody else's review about the colors itself. You know, I could probably throw up the specs and things like that if you want to see it. But as far as like contrast and reds, greens, blues, that kind of thing, I mean, I find it to be pretty good. Like, I find the colors to look pretty, like, you know, they pop and everything looks okay as I'm drawing. But again, like, I'm not like a color expert by any means. So that is the last part about this display as a, like, in the drawing experience. I'll go on to talk about the overall functionality of the display as well. Alrighty, so another thing about this display that I really love is that it's so large that I can also use it just as a regular monitor, and to me at least it's crisp enough to use as another monitor too. It's you know, it's just a regular HD display, so it's not like QHD or 4K or anything like that. But to me, like, my experience using this, it's not like super pixelated or anything like that. While you're drawing, and then if I want to do something else, like I've watched YouTube videos on here, I edit videos on here, all of that stuff works really, really well on this display. And if anything, to be honest with you, I like using it a little bit more than I like using even my other computer that is like full, or not full, but it's like, it's either QHD or I think it might be 4K. So that is one thing that I really enjoy about this particular display tablet as well. Alright, so one other positive about this tablet is that I find it almost insane that some of these tablets that are this big don't have express keys, just because the amount of space that this takes up on my desk is obscene. Like, and I know that with the express keys on the sides, it does like add probably about an inch on each side, so it's like a 24-inch display almost. But with that being said, if I were to get, for instance, I was looking at the Huion 22, the laminated one that's supposed to be like super good. I can't remember Canvas Plus 22, I think, or 22 Plus, whatever. I was looking at that one too. I'm glad I didn't get it. I'm sure that the drawing experience with a laminated like display was probably better, but I think my workflow would have been worse, and I also would have had to spend a little bit of extra money to get a controller because there's just no way that I would be able to have a keyboard up here as well as the display. Even with a smaller keyboard, like I just don't think that it would really fit on my desk, and I don't have a small desk, so that's one huge positive that I really like about this display is the functionality with the express keys on the sides. So if you are really thinking about getting a display at this large a space, I would highly recommend that too. And then my final point about the overall functionality of the display as a display itself is that I find too that with the size, the sheer size of this display, when I'm drawing, I find myself using the zoom less. And why is that important? If you haven't really used a digital like tablet very often, one of the biggest like worst things that you can do as you're drawing is really get obsessive with the zoom in. And the reason why that is because you start doing too much on the little bitty details, and when you zoom back out, it's like, oh my god, I just spent 20 minutes drawing something that you can't even see when it's at, the 100% view. And the reason why I think that this display in particular is like perfect for curing that is because of the overall size that you get. So, for instance, you could put a piece of actual paper on this screen and you turn it sideways, and that piece of paper is literally your drawing space. So you're getting 8 by 12 or 8 by 11, whatever it is, 9 by 11 space that is literally just drawing space, and that's like absolutely perfect. That's probably my favorite thing about this display is that I can use that entire space, and it's fantastic. So that's one thing I will say. Like if you're kind of like, oh, I don't know, do I want like a 15-inch display, or I want to go up to like a 22? I would say, or what is it, 16, whatever it is. I would say do the 22. You're not going to regret it. Now, I would say if you can find a $700 display that is a laminated display as well with the express keys, I would probably think about getting that one instead of this one. But this tablet is fantastic. Like I absolutely love it for that. So that will be one of my last points about the overall functionality. Alright, so I'm going to get to I think one of the most important positives about this display before I go into the negatives. So the most important positive to me is that I think that the workflow of this particular tablet, or that I have been able to create with this tablet, has been extraordinary. I find myself being able to draw things quicker. I find myself being able to go through my buttons and things quicker. I'm able to grab selections and stuff like that much faster. Everything for me has just improved. I feel like this tablet has made me a better artist overall. A piece of that, though, is obviously I'm practicing more and things like that, but the experience that I have on this tablet is great. Like, I have no real complaints about it. So overall, as far as the positives are concerned, that's pretty much what I have to say about it. Everything else in my other video, I would say stands in this video as well. The functionality, the quality of the lines, the jitter, the overall going from light to dark, dark to light, thick to thin, all that stuff. It works perfectly fine. Nothing has changed there. So now I'm going to go ahead and go into the negatives of this tablet. Alright, so the first negative of this tablet, I would say that the screen itself, since it's not a etched glass display, it worries me a little bit because I'm already starting to see small areas, and it's only been a month. I am starting to see small areas within the screen where, as I'm drawing, it has scratched just like very surface level. Like you wouldn't be able to feel it on your fingers or anything like that, and it doesn't impact like your drawing experience. It's not like you're feeling like ripples or bumps or anything as you're drawing over stuff. But that does really worry me, and I think I'll probably buy a screen protector for the display pretty soon, just because, you don't want to draw and end up having those like divots in your screen at some point. And I'm not a very heavy-handed drawer. Like I draw pretty light. I use a pencil and just in general, even when I'm writing, pretty lightly. So it is a little bit concerning to me, especially with the overall like price of the display. I mean, I got it at a really good deal, but a lot of the times you're gonna find this display for around like $700 US, and that's pretty expensive for something that might be like kind of prone to scratches and things like that. So that is one thing that is a little bit like disappointing with this display in my opinion. All right, so on to the next point. So point number 2. One of the things I do find a little bit frustrating, and it's not really that big of a deal, it just kind of sucks, is that if you put, at least on my computer, if you put this display into sleep mode and then you go to open it back up, you can't really use the pen. For whatever reason, it doesn't track. At least for me, again. It might be different on a Mac or something like that. I use Windows. But that is something that is a little bit frustrating at times because, sometimes you just want to take a break. You don't want to turn your computer all the way off and you want to, put it in sleep mode, go and come back maybe an hour or two later and start drawing again. And not every single time does the pen actually work. So you have to go ahead and go back and restart, and then the pen will work after it restarts. So a little bit nitpicky, I know, but it is a little bit annoying that happens. So that's one thing that you also want to keep your eye on. Alright, so point number 3. I know that I have been saying that the calibration and stuff works really well, but I will say this, there are times in which I do have to recalibrate this pen. I'm not really sure why that is. It might be the angle that I'm sitting at or something like that. So that's one thing that you have to be cognizant of. Like sometimes you are going to have to recalibrate. And while it's not like that big of a deal, it can kind of disrupt your workflow a little bit. So it's something that if that's really going to bother you, you probably are going to be better off getting a laminated or however it's said, display instead. It's just a little bit wonky at times. Like you'll go and after like a day of drawing or whatever, the next day sometimes it might be a little off. So yeah, that is like, I will say that's a con, but it's not a con that's not preventable, I should say. Like it's something that's solvable. Like you can solve it just by quickly doing the calibration. That's like 5 points, and then usually you're good to go after that. So that's negative number 3, and we will go on to the next. All right. So, the final point that I'll make, and this might be something that they solve in the near future, it's actually with the pen again, so I lied. There was one more thing about the pen that I don't like, and that's the tip. The reason why I don't like the tip is because I actually prefer to use felt tips. So, with this tablet, like when you first start drawing with a new tip, it is pretty like... it has some resistance, so it feels very paper-like, but after about, I don't know, like 20-30 minutes of drawing, it gets really like smooth and slippery. So that's one like big criticism that I have of the pen tips. And then the other thing that I will say is, and this kind of goes with my first point about the screen scratching, I have only used this tablet for a month, like I said, and within that month I've already exchanged the tip of this pen. So I don't know if like I might have just not been doing something correctly, but I doubt it. Like I said, like it was starting to scratch the screen and I could feel it, and the only way that it was going to be solved was with the change of the tip. So that is something too that you might want to be a little bit weary about if you want to buy this tablet. Alright, so what are my overall impressions about this pen display? So if I had to rank it, I would say, or give it a grade, I would say it's probably like a 8 or a 9 out of 10. The things that I think that it's missing are an etched glass like screen. I think that that would make it a little more durable and probably make it feel a little bit more paper-like. For right now, I would say that's probably my biggest concern about this display is its durability. I'm scared that in a year or two, like I'll have to get a new one, and that's kind of like it's kind of sucky, for lack of a better phrase, because you do spend a lot of money on these displays. But what I'll do is I'll probably do one last review at about a year and kind of tell you how it's going and whether or not I feel like it's durable. The second thing that I think is really significant about this display is I do think that the overall drawing experience could be slightly better. It has a little bit of latency when you're drawing, and if it was a laminated display, then it wouldn't have that gap, that parallax. Even though it's not really that big of a deal, having to not deal with calibrating I think would be really, really nice. And then the final negative would be just the overall like UI that you have to deal with this. It's not horrible, but it's not great either. What I mean by that is like the drivers and stuff like that. I don't think that if you have your tablet go to sleep and then it you wake your computer back up, you shouldn't have to restart your computer in order to draw. But other than that, I would say that the general consensus for me is that it's a fantastic like pen display. I really enjoy drawing on this. It's made me a better artist overall, which is why I'm giving it like an 8. I'll say an 8.5 out of 10. And I highly recommend that you at least look into this tablet, and if not, any other XP Pen tablets, because they're very good, or at least this one is very good. So that is my final impression. Thank you so much. Hopefully this was really helpful for you. If you wanted to see some more drawing, just make sure you look at my other videos. I do a lot of drawing on this channel, so or you can even look at one of my live streams or something like that. That's me practicing and using this tablet, and it's fantastic. So hopefully you did enjoy this though. If you did, please leave me a like, and I will do a 1-year review. Alright, thank you so much. Bye bye.